In the last video, we looked at the bladder and quill combination that scientists used in the very first blood transfusions between two animals. This video is about what happened a few months later in 1666, when the recipient for the first time was a human being. And the donor, or as they called it in the 17th century, the emittent, was a lamb. Nowadays, transfusions help us to treat various diseases or to replace lost blood, but back in the 1660s, no one really knew what was in the blood. They knew it had something to do with life and probably something to do with the soul as well. Consequently, the animal to human transfusions had two medical roles. One was to directly transfer life from one body to another, and the other was to use the blood of the emittent to change the character of the recipient. And this meant blood transfusions could supposedly cure diseases. And in 1668, an English doctor called George Acton gave a list of animals and diseases that their blood could cure. To give some examples, a cat's blood apparently cures epilepsy and herpes, an ass's blood cures fever, and an ox's blood cures dysentery. These were, in a way, our first stab at understanding blood types. But it was lamb's blood that was probably the most notorious. If you transferred the blood of a sweet, innocent lamb, the idea went you might be able to calm a mad person. The scientists in Britain and France who actually tried this took it very seriously and were even convinced it worked. Others, mostly in France, were genuinely worried that sheep blood recipients might start bleating and growing wool. The British public, on the other hand, found the whole thing ridiculous. In London, one of Thomas Shadwell's plays climaxed with a sheep blood recipient growing a tail out of his arse and the doctor declaring that he'd make his fortune by using blood transfusion to create a flock of sheep so he could sell their wool. Speaking of fortunes, our next object, a coin, takes us to the 18th century, where we find the first market in transplantable body parts.